Here we go.
This week on In the Weeds Prohibition Talk Radio, we are excited to sit down with Nikki Lawley of Nikki and the Plant.
Hi, my name is Nikki Lawley, and I'm here to share my journey with cannabis.
After suffering a traumatic brain injury, married, financially stable, and enjoying life,
I had the world pretty much in my hands.
Until one day, Nikki will never forget.
I was a pediatric nurse.
The day that changed Nikki's life forever.
Was 10/11/2016.
She was doing her job just like any other day, helping another nurse give a vaccine to a young boy when
I was hit frontally in my forehead, and I bounced off a plaster wall and back into the child's head, and it was a double impact injury.
She started suffering from a multitude of issues, including
the constant headache that never ever goes away.
Battling these painful issues put Nikki in a dark place.
I actually was incredibly suicidal.
Dealing with TBI is a challenge.
My brain injury is like a true puzzle. The pieces are all there, but they're in the wrong order. They don't fit.
One of the biggest challenges she faced was she was a medical professional.
So one of the biggest challenges I faced was that I'm a medical professional, an experienced nurse. I now found myself as being the patient. I never could have imagined some of the challenges that patients actually face.
The pain was nonstop.
And it was unrelentless.
Her credibility came into question.
I was no longer regarded as a nurse. I'm now a patient.
Nikki searched everywhere for help.
I went and saw over 50 providers. I was on a multitude of different drugs, treatments, therapies, you name it, I tried it.
With pain and frustration mounting,
I was in a very, very dark place.
She realized there was something wrong here.
I wasn't getting better anytime quick.
Then, on a trip one day, she found herself contemplating the end.
Absolute despair and pain and misery. I literally was contemplating how to kill myself. No one with a brain injury should have to fight to be believed.
Then inspiration struck.
And I was sobbing, crying. My husband was out walking. All of a sudden, this mobile billboard came cruising by.
The billboard was for medical cannabis cards.
I was like, cannabis card? What's cannabis?
Cannabis?
But I never considered cannabis as a medicine, and I never considered it as something that I was introduced to the plant that day and would not have thought that this would be a good idea. That cannabis got me off the ledge. That cannabis gave me hope. That cannabis allowed me to function. Medical cannabis needs to be a treatment option as a first line treatment, not as a last resort.
Tune in February 24th for when In the Weeds sits down with Nikki to hear her amazing story, her journey, and how she found cannabis, the challenges of the medical system and access to her medicine, and how it changed her life.
I'm here to say cannabis can save lives. Living in the past creates depression. Living in the future creates anxiety. Living in the moment creates peace and comfort. Enjoy life to its fullest. Cannabis saved my life. Cannabis is my medicine.
Zoom with In the Weeds and Nikki at 4:20 p.m. Eastern Standard Time at www.facebook.com/Prohibition Talk Radio with Vermont Cannabis Solutions, the Green Nurses, and the Bud Grower with host Joseph Smith.
All right, guys, we are back. Another in the Weeds Prohibition Talk Radio. I'm really excited this week. That video just gets me going. It makes me a little emotional. I'm not gonna lie. So we're here with Nikki Lawley, guys, of Nikki and the Plant this week. We can't wait to talk to her about her story, and as you guys saw in the teaser video, her issues with dealing with traumatic brain injuries. Was it last month, Sherry, that was Traumatic Brain Injury Month that we discussed and we went over with your Canada Talk segment as well, right? Oh, I think you're on mute.
Yes, we did. We talked about traumatic brain injury. It was Traumatic Brain Injury Month. And so winter sports. So we looked at all of the different things. We looked at CBD, we looked at cannabis, and we talked about how cannabinoid therapeutics is truly beneficial for people that have traumatic brain injury. And because of what happens in the brain, it's a bruised brain that is constantly firing off. And so, Nikki and I have talked about this before. She's been on The Green Nurse, and basically just to hear her story about how the system wasn't able to help her and how it was the last resort. So that's really, really important. And as nurses, it's the other thing too, is nurses having a traumatic brain injury. And the part that's really difficult is nurses that get sick and ill, that have chronic illnesses, and they're not able to figure it out. And the doctors and the teams and the people specialists that you see when they can't figure it out, it's really hard. It's really hard. Like, why? I'm a nurse, I'm smart, I'm educated, I know how to take care of myself, I know how to take care of others, but why can't I figure out what's going on with me? So I'm really excited for you to share your story. It's a very compelling story, and it's a story that needs to be told.
Yes.
And because there's a lot of health professionals out there, and you being a pediatric nurse, I was a pediatric nurse for 5 years before I got ill. So I get it. I understand what you're going through, what you've been through. Mine happened in 2012, yours happened in 2016, but I know we've experienced very similar situations, even though our disease processes and our health challenges are different.
Well, I think it's like, as I say, I think it's a common trend we've seen with a lot of our patient guests that we've had on the show is that our health systems, right? But we're going to get to all that in a minute. I just want to say hi to the rest of our team here, our panel here. Timothy Fair, Vermont Cannabis Solutions. We got Justin as well from the bud grower. These guys, I'm excited. Justin, welcome back. He's new on the team, so we're excited to have him on board. And another great segment this week for Strain of the Week, and we have Timothy Fair, which will be talking about legal, law, news, all the fun stuff that no one really wants to talk about. We'll try to get down to some of the bare bones of it all, what's going on in New Jersey, North Dakota. There's a lot of things happening, guys, but can we take it for real? Is it something we should pay attention to or not? You know what I mean? As we've seen in most states, getting through the stages of legality takes many twists and turns, I guess you could say, right? So, and even when you're there, as New Jersey, we're not really there, are we? So we have a great show, guys. Also want to tell everybody about, the bud grower. We do have a promotion going on with In the Weeds and the Green Nurse as well, guys. If you guys want to save some money and get yourself a kit, especially for medical patients, beginners, you guys have small areas or confinements and you just want to be able to get everything you can, save a few bucks, check out the bud grower, guys. Prohibition 10 will save you a few bucks and we'll get you going with that. Sherry?
One thing I want to say too, that's interesting, is that we got to vote for In the Weeds. Joe Smith and In the Weeds are up for Activist of the Year. So we're gonna put that in the comments later. So
I appreciate that.
Absolutely. Your show is awesome, and I'm honored to be on it. So I wanted to give you a quick plug.
Well, we gotta give the Green Nurses right there with us within the Weeds. And guys, there's a ton of great names on these nominations from all across the country, which we're very honored. It's an Adam Dunn, I think it's Cannabis Activist Now, if I remember right. The website, we'll find it here in a minute. Where you guys can go vote for Activist of the Year, Podcast of the Year, Advocate of the Year, Medical Patient of the Year. There's a lot of great nominations there that you guys can go and please vote. I'm a shameless plugger. It was hard to even put myself in that video. I'm like, I don't got a logo. But thank you, Sherry. I appreciate that. Yes, we are nominated. It feels good to be nominated. We try hard. So, but right now, I want to say to Nikki. Nikki, I've been waiting all week. We've been talking off air and for a little while now. So I've been really intrigued by your story. I've watched a lot of videos, and you have content out there, so which is amazing, right? You become a huge advocate. So the whole story, it's amazing to me, right? Because like Sherry had brought up, we were talking before the show, we're talking during the show about how the medical system treats patients, right? And you are part of the medical system. So before we dive all into all that, can you please tell everybody who's listening who you are, where you're from, and basically your history? Like, were you a cannabis smoker? How did you turn to cannabis?
Sure. Thanks so much for having me, Joe and Sherry. Great to meet Tim and Justin as well. Uh, just a quick one, Justin. I wish I had known you a few years ago when I attempted to grow my own medicine. Very expensive and not easy. So anyone
Yeah.
thinks you just pop a seed in the plant in the floor and it just grows, not so much. So
No.
I would have loved to have met you when I attempted it. Anyway, great meeting everyone. And Joe, the video you did for me was absolutely exceptional. And I can't thank you enough for having me on the show and being able to share this journey.
It's truly our honor.
My name is Nikki Lawley. I live in Buffalo, New York. About 4 years ago, I was working just like any other day, and a kid didn't want a vaccine. Pretty common practice in nursing pediatric office, and basically hit me in the head, bounced off the wall, back into his head, and that day my life forever changed. I had been hit in the head before. This was my third injury. It didn't seem to be a big deal um, at the time, but it kind of did because, like, my entire left side went numb. How I was hit, it was sort of at an angle. And through multitudes of testing, I finally learned part of the reason my TBI never got better is because my issue lies in the neck as well. So I have cervical instability. And so that basically means my head just kind of bobbles a little bit. My ligaments are torn, and it causes a host of multitude of other issues because I don't get enough cerebral spinal fluid basically to the frontal lobes of my brain. And so it basically creates a constant headache that never, ever goes away. Cannabis helps so much. Just allows me to think of something other than the pain. I discovered cannabis after total desperation. My husband thought it would be a great idea to take me to Las Vegas because I was so despondent. After the injury, I expected to be back at work like 2 days later, and it just wasn't the case. I was in my room, shuffled from doctor to doctor, trying to find a provider that accepted New York State workers' compensation, which is a very unfriendly patient system, was a huge, huge stressor. Constantly having to prove that there's something wrong with you. And then you start to feel like, well, is something wrong with me? Is it in my head? Am I really like, what is really happening here? And it felt so dehumanizing because I've been a respected nurse, I've been a respected dealer, a business owner. I'm a smart human, but the fact that I could not just go to a doctor, like share the story and get a prescription and just walk out and feel better, there was no chance of that. And then when you go to a independent medical examiner from workers' compensation and they say, yeah, just go back to work now, honey, you're fine. It's just do light duty for a little while. I'm like, buddy, I can't get out of bed. What are you talking about? Just go back to work. It was so almost, you lose your sense of self. You lose who you are because now you just become a diagnosis. You just become this blob of problems, and you feel like a hypochondriac almost because everything hurts. Nothing is going well. You go to a neuropsych exam and they say, oh, honey, your headache is really caused from your prior anxiety and depression. And I'm like, what? No, no. And this is not the case. And it was awful. And so my husband thinking, well, okay, let's just go to Vegas and everything will be okay because she loves going to Vegas and she loves, the whole atmosphere. So let's just go. And I'm like, are you out of your flipping mind? How the heck am I going to go to Las Vegas and function? I can't get out of the bed. At Christmas time that year, my daughter literally was so like, Mom, nobody's going to help you. You got to help yourself. You can't just go down this hole of hell because nobody's going to save you. And she's a nurse, and it was a really hard talk, and it was a really hard time, but like, she kind of just smacked it into me, but it didn't make it better. I still was just as miserable. I was still in so much pain and so sad that I couldn't just be the old nurse, and the income loss, your life consisted of therapy in the morning for the head, therapy in the afternoon for the eyes, therapy to talk to somebody, and it was just constant doctor appointments. And the reason you have to have them is so that workers' compensation believes that you're injured. And it's like, you want to just stay home, and because none of these therapies are really helping. But yet at the same time, you have to play the game. And I'm not a good game player, I got to be honest. And I kept going to these doctors, doing what they said, going through horrible treatments, having near anaphylactic reactions to several different drugs that I was tried on. And no one listened. And at the end of the day, if a patient is telling you this drug doesn't work, you should maybe actually listen to them. I mean, because at the end of the day, I'm the real expert. I'm the one that's going to figure out what works. Your drugs, your studies are amazing, and maybe for some of the population they work. But this is real life. Life is not in a petri dish, and a scientific study is done on a controlled group of humans that is not real life. And I'm a real life liver. And unfortunately, it took me coming to the end of my rope where I was ready to jump off the ledge of the Cosmopolitan Hotel in Las Vegas on January 24th, 2017. And I saw a billboard saying, get your medical marijuana cannabis card today. And there was like a siren going off in the background, and it was like, that caused me to look down. And then I'm thinking, shit, I'm not going to be able to kill myself. I'm just going to end up worse, And so then the practicality kind of came in, but that didn't make me any less sad. That didn't make me any less despondent. And so then the thing comes back again. I had smoked cannabis, of course, as a kid, not as a kid. I actually discovered it when I was 26, and it was for a head thing. I had Lyme disease, and a friend suggested cannabis. And again, you just kind of blank out the medicinal benefits when you're using it in a social setting, or just to kind of chill out like a glass of wine. You kind of forget that, wow, when you were 26, you actually used it as medicine. And it just, I don't know how to explain it. It's somebody suggesting to me to smoke a joint right, at that point in my life, I would have been like, yeah, no. And so all I'm saying is, I was very, if you had a child that was having seizures and he was in my practice that I worked at and as a nurse, I would have probably called CPS on you, because that's not cool. You can't give your kid drugs, especially if it wasn't prescribed by a medicinal provider, right? I mean, I don't care if again, my mind was so closed to the potential medicinal benefits that, I mean, personal story, true life, my son had a situation where, he was arrested at one point for cannabis, and he was trying to grow his medicine. And I was mortified. It was absolutely hell. And as I just shared with Justin, I attempted to do the same thing. What a hypocrite. How can I possibly do that, right? And now here I am preaching the plant, because had I not seen that billboard drive by, I would have never even considered cannabis as medicine. That, I want to be clear. I went to a dispensary, I got the medical card. It wasn't like a panacea. I just smoked a joint and all of a sudden my pain went away and life just became a bowl full of cherries and roses. But it allowed me to focus on something besides the pain. And when that plant, the specific terpene profiles for me are so important, specific genetics, and again, I'm only having my experience is sort of unique. I came from Las Vegas expecting to come to New York State and just have the same medicine available. Chronic pain, when I came back to New York, was not on the list of conditions. So I'm like, well, what can I fall under? And I mean, they were like severe diagnoses, like wasting syndrome, like stage 4, no hope of life. I mean, like, what can I possibly do to get this medicine, And I discovered Canada then. And I had great friends in Canada that kind of heard my story and said, well, come over here. We'll find you medicine. Just come over here. And so then I became the medical cannabis refugee to the other country. And up until COVID, that was where I went. Now the border has been closed coming up on a year, March 21st. And I have cannabis sitting in a storage unit that the storage unit literally called me and said, Miss Lawley, we really can't rent units in your building because the stench coming from your locker is so severe. I am like, yeah, can we open it and double bag your products, please? And so, of course, I gave them permission. But the point is, cannabis became my medicine. And it's like, literally sitting 15 minutes away from me, and I cannot access it because of a border, of a border that is a line between two countries that we really all love each other and it's all okay. But this virus has driven a wedge between us. And so I am devastated. And so what has had to happen is now I have to get my medicine that's untested. I get a name. And can I just share with everyone, a strain name really doesn't mean shit. And I hate to say it quite that direct, but it is fact. Without tested cannabis, I don't care who grows it. I don't care what his name is. I don't care if he is the almighty of Durban poison from South Africa. Okay, I don't care if that's him. When it gets to me, Nikki Lawley in Buffalo, it is not the same plant. It is not the same product. It has been reproduced, and mutations are so easy. And I found one strain that literally changed my life in Las Vegas. And it's called A-Dub. It's by Shango. I'm not getting paid to say this. This is like legitimately brain injury. And this particular strain, I have looked at its terpene profile. I have tried other product families of it. And it's just unlike anything else. And it works. And I mean, I've gotten it now from Vegas. I've gotten it from Oregon. And it's consistently the same product. And that's how I know it's medicine. That's how I know it's just not my feeling of the day. It's just not, okay, so you had a bad night's sleep, so you just smoked this particular strain and now you feel rosy and perfect. I literally have 30 different small amounts of different kinds of medicine because none of them work. So what I tend to do is I have to do a pick and choose and do a little mix and match. And, it's kind of a life hack.
Salad bar. That's what I look at it. The salad bar. Can you imagine?
Yes. It's a
salad
salad.
bar of weed, and you put a little on your plate here, on your plate there.
Well, no, Nikki, I mean, you're so far, you're probably the easiest guest I've ever had to talk to, because I mean, you're literally hitting on everything that we really promote heavily in the show, especially from you being a patient angle and understanding this, right? Like it's the cultivars that, are they hybrid indica sativas? No, they're pretty much all hybrids now, unless you're getting a really legit cut that even that cut has probably been back crossed or utilized somewhere that doesn't make it what it is now, right? One of the biggest things I wanted to talk to you about, I mean, the story is amazing, and I'm so glad that you're in Nevada when you were, because I hate to think of where you would have been if you didn't see a drive-by billboard, right? We talk about billboards and marketing and things like that, and here's a great example of someone seeing it and lighting a light in their head. You know what I mean? Of going and trying something you're at that moment, right? You went through the medical system, right? And you were talking about how it just didn't seem like people were listening to you, things like that. It seems like this is a common issue, and Sherry's here, so this is something I want to open up to everybody. But I had a head injury myself, and I kind of get caught in that same rotation where it was like, all right, this is what you had, this is what you like. They're telling me what's wrong with me, and then giving me 9 medications to go with what they told me was wrong with me. And like most of those medications were side effects for the medication that they gave me to help me. So it made no sense to me, right? Which at the end of the day actually made it 15 times worse for me personally. And I know everybody's different, but we talk a lot about this on the show. And what I love about the cannabis community is we all talk about how everybody's different, But why do I not see this in the medical community? I mean, were you ever sat down with a doctor and like literally gone through everything that was going on? Or was it just like quick, easy? Like, how were you treated? I mean,
shuffled through as fast as I can. I have a very compassionate primary who pretty much let me dictate my care to who I could get care from based on the workers' compensation system. And even if you're willing to pay out of pocket locally, they won't touch you because you're in New York State and you're part of that system. So I literally went to Canada. I went to Florida. I went to New York City. I went, and out of my own pocket, I spent more than I make in a year. And that came out
that's
of
another
my
issue.
life savings. Okay. Like I'm not a rich human at all.
Mm-hmm.
But at this point, I mean, what do you do? How do you tell people, you can't get care? And then the trauma of just constantly people saying, well, that can't be. You just can't still have concussion syndrome symptoms. You just can't. And I'm like, please come into my body. Please live a day in my brain and then tell me that, because it is not normal. I know what a bump on the head feels like. I know when I fell the first 2 times and I hit back in 2011 and 2014, nothing affected me like this did. This was game changing. And I want to get better. And so I kept searching and searching for more answers and legitimacy in, you have something wrong with you. And it was like traumatic. It was truly traumatic. And I wouldn't wish anyone to go through this. And I think if I had been introduced to cannabis early on, like maybe back in October, can I just make a little side note? The Israeli army, it's in their ambulance, for all blast injuries, they shoot up your nose cannabis. Okay. Because why? It reduces inflammation. Hello. So what I'm telling you is we need to get with the system. We need to open our minds to alternative therapies. And I am the first one to say, I tried the real system and tried to do the things the right way. And then like random stuff, I would try anything. I mean, if somebody told me to stand on my head, even though, my head felt like it was going to fall off, I tried it. Okay. So did that answer your question? Okay.
Yeah, no, it's great. And you introduced a whole nother topic that we did discuss a lot again is insurance, right? Is a lot of what's going on in the medical industry deterred because of insurance, because they're not getting covered? They're not going to get a check on the back end? I mean, is this a lot of, I know we have patients and caretakers that are open to the idea of cannabis, but when we get into issues like this, where like you said, in New York, you get totally different treatment than you did in Nevada, right? Because of the legality of cannabis, right? Sherry, am I on?
So we're talking about insurance covering regular traditional treatments, right?
Yes.
So workers' compensation, you have to get approved for everything. So I was a workers' compensation case as well, getting sick on the job. And so you have to literally, I had surgery denied for 1.5 years. That's a long time to deny someone of surgery. So granted, and the surgery did help, about 50%. So the bottom line is the system is flawed. The system is a failure. It's creating medical and pharmaceutical trauma to so many different patients. And when patients come to me as a nurse And they say to me, Sherry, they don't know what's wrong with me. They can't figure it out. They keep doing this, this, and that. And you know what? I get excited. You know why? Because the first thing that goes into my head is this: clinical endocannabinoid deficiency. Because the same thing happened to me. If someone had known about cannabis, cannabinoid therapeutics, and the endocannabinoid system, I would not have suffered as long as I suffered. Because my story is just like Nikki's, except for it's a different disease process, where same thing happened. I did everything the doctors told me to do. I did all of the holistic alternative. I did essential oils, aromatherapy, homeopathy, shamanism, Reiki, reconnective healing, nutrition. I did it all. Psychiatrist, cognitive behavioral therapist. You go on and on and on. I know Nikki's done it because we talked about it. And when none of it works, what happens in your head as a nurse, as a medical professional? You feel like a big flippin' failure. How can I not figure this out? And so when cannabis came into our lives, what happened? It opened up the door to a system that started to work. And so all of the other health and wellness activities that we do now work better because of this plant. Nikki, am I right on?
Spot on. I feel like you're preaching to me. I mean, I say the exact same message. And I honestly was so closed-minded to the plant. And to your point, Joe, that billboard, how do you put a price on someone's life when an advertiser is looking for, how can my story should be selling cannabis billboards all over the country?
Yeah, no.
For real.
I mean, well, this is why we do the show and why we put people like you in these situations, to give you a platform to share your story with people, is because you're living walking proof of it all, right? Like you're walking proof of the stigmas that we once had, right? You're a nurse, so you have the credentials of seeing both sides of the scope on this, right? Because it's really hard for people like me to see and idealize what a nurse would think about when they look at me, right? Or when I want to medicate, or when I bring up cannabis. And, I bet you there's still a large percent of people that do not allow their caretaker to know they smoke weed or do drugs of any other sort. So how are you supposed to get good care that way anyways, right? So you have to have a trust there, right? But when you, like you and Sherry were just talking about, when you get to your end of your rope and you feel like the trust is not there and then no one's listening to you, and now you're kind of becoming that burden on the system, because everyone's like, oh, well, it's her again, right? Like, I mean, I'm sure it gets to that point at some point, right? Like, we've looked at this lady, we've heard her story. We don't, send her off to somewhere else, right? This is the issue with the medical system, right? But like, I think one of the other biggest issues I want to remind everybody is the endocannabinoid systems, right? Like, these are things we talk about now prevalently, but we didn't know about these 10 years ago, right? They're just starting to come aboard. There's doctors starting to push it. Ethan Russo has been on the scene for a while, talking about the on-charge effects in cannabinoid and terpene medicines, right? So, and now that legalization's rushing through the states, we're seeing this, but we still do not have insurance, right? We still do not have federal backing. So these insurance companies will not help people out like you, that even in states where, like you said, whether it's a condition that can get covered or not through a card, doesn't mean you're going to get insurance, right? So, and we talk about the expense of cannabis a lot and the high cost of it, which, I want to remind people, there's a reason for this too. It's not that dispensaries are trying to make $1 million. They are, because they spent $1 million just to get the license to open the doors, right? They spent $3 million to build a building. They're paying growers good money to craft a product that can be the best that they can get to a patient, right? So there's a lot of expense to that, within a building, within insurances, within banking, and like, they're facing all the same issues we all are across the board on the back end with, we can't find a bank, they can't do this, they can't do that. There's a lot of things that they're strapped to too. So, and then here comes a cost. So who incurs the cost is the patient, unfortunately, right? There's a lot of great programs out there that try to help with patients, and there's a lot of great companies that donate a lot of products to patients, but it's a medicine, so you kind of need it when you need it, right? So it's hard to keep that, like you said, it's hard to keep that medicine. You're flying all over the country trying to find it, right? And in Canada, yes, they have a great system. You're a part of that, but we're facing COVID, right? So not only are we in lockdown, we can't get across the border. Here you are needing medicine. So, I mean, you have a great story. It's truly inspiring for people, and for somebody like me, because a lot of people won't take cannabis seriously until they hear from someone like Sherry or someone like Nikki with a story, right? We had Sister Suzanne on, and the flood of calls I got after that show were people, even my mom, like she's probably, hi mom, you know what I mean? She's probably watching me now, right? And sadly, it took a Sister Suzanne to kind of get her to kind of, you know, open her mind, right? So telling your stories and all these things, right? You know, the other great things is you talked about is your medication, right? We joked about salads, right? I think it's one of the things that we do not discuss enough in cannabis world about how patients need to medicate, right? We talk about with our strains of the week, we talk about terpenes, we try to educate as much as we can, but as the biggest point we try to make is for a patient, you know, what works for them in the morning probably won't work for them in the afternoon, and it'll probably need to be adjusted for the evening, right? Because you know, I want to wake up in the morning, so I'm going to smoke something or consume something that's going to wake me up. It would give me a sativa effect, right? I'm trying hard not to use those words, but
I know
the words, these are words that people understand, right? So I want to get the energy effect, right? So whatever strain that is, cultivar that works for me to give me that energy effect, because again, some people will have different adverse effects to even cannabis, right? Just like any other drug. So, and then at night, I don't want to be consuming that high energy effect type of cultivar, because what's going to happen to me? I'm going to be up all night, right? I do that to myself 6 nights of the week. I don't know why. I just like sativa style weed, right? And then, you know, it depends on what you're working with too, because pain, right? Like Justin did a great strain of the week this week on a sedative, like a Kush style plant that is a heavy sedative. So, you know, whether you're looking for something like that or, you know, something so you can go out and take a vacation, right? So people need to be educated on that. I love the salad aspect because personally, that's what I do. I get 3 or 4 different cultivars and I'll change it up throughout my day and however I feel, because as you smoke, you know what effect you're getting from each strain, right? So, Nikki, it's been a few years now, right? And now you've turned to cannabis, you've introduced cannabis. How many drugs were you able to replace with cannabis?
Well, there were various times I was on up to like 20 different pills a day between supplements and, you know, you name it. I now take 3 total, Synthroid, Zoloft. I'm still on an antidepressant.
Mhm.
I tried to go off, but then my brain injury symptoms just truly come back to the point where, yeah, it's not worth it. I'd rather just let the things be. And then I take Adderall as well, which I've been on prior brain injury.
Mhm.
So I always have had like an ADD kind of thing going on in the background. So I
Mhm.
think when this really happened, it not only magnified the ADHD symptoms, but it really caused other parts of my brain to like shut down and cause like this depression hole and this anxiety hole and never feeling good enough, never like feeling like I'm going crazy. I mean, when you see these doctors and they literally look at you and again, this isn't every single one, but it's far greater more than not. And you know, everyone's got a different opinion and you have to become your own advocate and you have to learn what your injury is enough that you can speak educatedly.
Mhm.
In the beginning of my injury, couldn't even look at a computer, much less research anything. And now, because of cannabis, I can do more research and, you know, get more education and learn
Mhm.
more why hazes are better for me than Kushes, why cheese seems to be my thing, especially like the UK cheese. That's like, can I just say? Um, like super lemon haze is great, but lemon kush, not so much.
Yeah.
So again, and this is just based on different cultivars. And again, I'm going by name because I don't have a test.
Yeah.
So when I'm in an unregulated market, that's the joy. Go.
Sherry.
So here's a quick question. So the medical community is starting to talk about chemotypes. So instead of
Mhm.
saying strains, they're saying type 1 is high THC, low CBD. They're saying type 2 is equal amounts of THC and CBD. And then they're saying type 3 is high dose CBD, low THC. So they're looking at these things as chemotypes and then looking at the rest of the cannabinoid profile and the terpenes. It's really interesting how the science community is shifting just a little bit. So in your experience, what do you take? Do you take high THC, low
Yes.
CBD? Okay, that's what I wanted to know.
Yes, and although when I was in Boston, great cultivar Tycoon alum, I gotta say, love their stuff. Again, not being paid, just saying, it really worked for me. It was the Midnight, and that was a 1-to-1 strain.
Yep.
Compared to their ears or however the heck you say it. But their products were really clean, really nice. I loved being able to access COAs. I love a legal state. It's just so awesome. But I'm not looking, I look at the whole plant profile. I'm not just looking at the THC percentage, because honestly, I could give two poos about the THC percent. It's more about the flavor, the smell. I mean, I have to smoke my medicine. Unfortunately, it's the only way I find relief. I need the whole plant, the whole flower. I cannot do the extracted stuff. It just is not as effective. I would love to be able to eat it and feel the same effects. I don't. This is due to weight loss surgery and not having a gallbladder. So I don't absorb fat soluble things, which both THC and CBD, even if we break them down by nanoparticles and try and make them water soluble, at the end of the day, they don't absorb in my system. So we have tried multiple times to try and find different products that could potentially work. And this was all done in Canada with scientists and things like that. And to the person that can find a product for me that I don't have to smoke, you could make a lot of money. That's all I can say.
It's interesting. Oh, Sherry?
Here's the thing about inhalation. I think it's really, really important that you disclose that, because there is nothing wrong with that. There's a lot of people that are out there that's saying, oh, you shouldn't smoke. Oh, shoulda, coulda, woulda. Well, guess what? When you're a patient and you've suffered and you've done everything you can to try to figure it out and make it work, and you find something that works, guess what? I don't care what anyone says, right? It's about you. There's no one more important than you. And you figured it out, and now you're speaking about it. And I am so happy, because people do poo-poo inhalation, and I don't want to do that. I don't at all. Multiple methods of administration are important, but when you find something that works, and I'm just so happy that you didn't deter and just be like, oh, you're standing solid in your sovereignty and your authority of knowing yourself, right?
Sherry, the expert on medical cannabis here in New York, in Buffalo, literally looked at me and said, if you're smoking your medicine, it's not medicine.
Yeah, it's not right.
I looked at him and I said, you're wrong. He's like, I've done so many studies, I know. And he said, and if you need THC, high THC, you're just getting high. So imagine after spending 2 years learning about medical cannabis in Canada, and then having a New York State doctor who is the expert in Western New York, like the expert, tell me that high THC and smoking my medicine are not effective. I was disheartened. How could I possibly ever recommend another patient go see that man? Because what a disservice. And then to steer them to his own private brand of products inside his office instead of sending them to the New York State dispensary that he just certified them to go do. I'm just appalled.
Yeah. No, I mean, there's lots of studies out there that show that smoking can help, and with a lot of patients, smoking is a preferred choice. For me, I'd rather smoke preferably a blunt or a joint. Other people, I'm sure, would rather have edibles, and other people like dabs, and everybody has their preference, right? For me, it's kind of like a wine, right? Like there's a wine for every occasion, right? It depends on what you're doing, what your mood is, what day of the week it is, how hot it is outside. Like, you're going to make a choice based on all this, right? No, it's really remarkable you talk about it. the thing. Oh, Sherry, sorry.
Really quickly. So when I just want to talk about the New York doctor just a little bit and about research. So there's a lot of topics that always come up amongst nurses, medical professionals when we're talking about research. And you've nailed it on the head before, is that the minute a research study is done, guess what? It's outdated.
Yep.
It's an old research study. And then oftentimes too, with these research studies, they're not accounting for variables, a lot of different variables. And so I'll hear people say, oh, it's anecdotal. Oh, it's a placebo. Oh, it's this. Oh, it's that. Well, guess what? These anecdotal placebos that are happening is what should be fueling the research. Okay, you think about it. Think about it. So when you have people saying the same thing over and over and over again, doesn't that like kind of, turn a light bulb on to say, maybe, just maybe we should really look into that. Maybe we should listen to these thousands of patients.
What a novel idea.
Yeah.
What a novel idea. Listen, hello.
You think so, right? No, I think people just need to be more open-minded about their consumption methods. I mean, there's still a stigma. Smoking, there's a stigma against smoking in general anyways, right? Whether it's cigarette smoking, cannabis smoking, and anything you want to inhale, smoking it is not a great idea. But, a lot of these guys will support cartridges and vaporizers and other methods of getting off of smoking, which to me is you're still putting things inside your lungs. Oil to me is probably a little worse, is a little more. Oil vapor is worse to me than smoking vapor, I think. They're all bad, right? But if it's going to work for you, I mean, epileptics, you see a lot with that because it's immediate, right? Like typically when you take something orally, it takes a second to kind of hit the system.
That's why I think inhalation needs to be more prominent than less, because it's in your system. You know if it's going to work, you know if it's going to be, and it's going to be out of your system. It's not like going on a ride with an edible train that, you take a 20 milligrammer and you're riding down Alice's hole and or the green out, that's like a legit situation. I almost killed my friend who's a researcher in cannabis. Like she was,
No.
I've never seen anybody throw up as much. But again, I like OD'd her. I gave her 10, first she ate 1-10 1-to-1 and everything was great. We were having the best time of our life. Then we ate, and that binding of the edible and the change over to Delta 11 and the fat, OMG. Then I said, she yawned and I said, oh, no, sister. It's only 2:00. We are first night in Vegas. Pop another edible, baby. She took that other edible, spent the night in the ER, ambulance, the whole nine. It was not the right thing to do. And I'm a nurse here, so I mean,
you make a great point with smoking versus edibles. We talk about it a lot. Edibles can't take a ride, and a lot of people, unless you're experienced with taking edibles, you don't know what to expect. When you do get there, I think a lot of it is the anxious and the unknown. You know what I mean? You start falling into that mind trap as you would most other drugs, and you start like you start playing mind games with yourself, which only amplifies the problem, right? So with edibles, it can be a lot of fun, but you gotta be careful because again, those are some things that you don't necessarily know what's inside of them a lot, right? It could be you don't know where you're getting them, especially if the black market.
I mean, when you have one bad experience, I'm telling you,
which is becoming more prevalent now. We've talked about distillates many times on the show and what you're getting with the distillate. Oh, am I in and out?
You're in and out.
Oh no.
We're in now.
Here we are. The same. Watching everything looks great on my end. Sorry what I missed there, but we're just talking about the edible thing, right? Like, especially with Sherry, I'm sure you've seen this. We've all heard friends that have experienced this. I tend to lead on Nikki's side with a lot of this, like smoking for me is the best way. I can eat a lot of edibles and not really be where I want to be when I smoke. You know what I mean? That would probably be enough for everybody in the panel. You know what I mean? And I'm sure there's other people in the panel that could eat like a few edibles and enjoy life. Like, Sherry, I know you prefer edibles, don't you?
Yeah, I like edibles a lot. I think that they work really well for me. It gives me I like to stack. So stacking to me is something that I teach patients. And so it's inhaling, doing a tincture, and either a capsule, a gummy, or an edible, all at the same time. Okay. So if you think about the bioavailability and the onset of the cannabinoids, it actually makes it last longer. So the inhalation lasts for me, depending upon how many puffs. It could be 1 hour, 2 hours, it just depends. And then the tincture kicks in and that lasts a little bit longer. And then the edible kicks in and that lasts a little bit longer. So I have this steady flow of cannabinoids going through my system, which actually works really good. And then in between, what I'll do is I have my handy dandy little vaporizer if I'm out in public. So inhalation to me is perfect for emergencies. It hits, it happens right away. Today, I've got issues, going to the traditional doctors, and I had to go to an appointment today. Plagued with anxiety, issues with agoraphobia. I'm like, I can't be baked out of my mind going to the doctor. So I drive myself there, I sit in the car and I pull out my vaporizer and I do a couple rips and I meditate and I take a nice deep breath. And I was able to go into the doctor's office and have the visit. And by the time I was done, I was there for an hour, it was worn off. Right. So it took the edge off. So inhalation to me is something that is important. I use it as needed, PRN, as we call it in the medical world.
It's like a little nip, you know what I mean? It's a little nip, just take the edge off. We'll go take care what we gotta do. No, it's an amazing story, Nikki. And people can find you and find out more about your story. You do have a website. You do have Nikki and the Plant on Facebook as well, correct?
Correct.
So you're sharing your story. You're doing TSC talks quite a bit as well. So if somebody wants to keep following your story and follow you as well, TSC talks, check that out as well. What we're going to do here is we're going to shift gears really quick. We're going to come back to Nikki, and we're going to go and hit the Can Talk segment. So Can Talk was fun for me today because it talks about the Munchies, and this is a great subject I love to talk about because I feel like I'm one of those people that's lost some weight utilizing cannabis. You know what I mean? And a lot of it is just how you look at and the philosophies behind how you eat, right? When you eat, what you eat, things that you can eat in different aspects versus the other that are healthier options. You know what I mean? If you're going to eat cheeseburgers and pizzas every night at midnight, you probably are going to have a weight problem and a few health problems, right? Now, tips and tricks to avoid that. So we talk about the Munchies in cannabis, right? It's one of the biggest stigmas in the cannabis industry, probably, right? So you guys went over that today for Wellness Wednesday. Tell me a little bit more about that as we get the clip ready.
All right, cool. So what we're doing on the Green Nurses, we're bringing health awareness topics for every month. There's different health awareness topics. And just this past week was anorexia nervosa awareness week. So we talked about that. And then we brought that into cannabinoid therapeutics. How could that apply to a patient? So a lot of patients that do have anorexia nervosa, so the mental component of not wanting to eat because they think they're fat, get very, very nervous. Is cannabis going to give me the munchies? Is it going to make me overeat? And so the answer is no, it's not, right? So we got to look at the endocannabinoid system, how it works, how it regulates all 11 organ systems. There've been plenty of patients that have started using cannabis that have actually lost weight. And some of the other studies that are out there, there was an Olympic athlete that studied 8,000 Olympic athletes, and 25% of them use cannabis every single day. Another study that came out, yes. Another study that came out too that said people that consume cannabis every day exercise 45 minutes longer than people that don't a week. So that's huge. And I don't get the munchies. I actually get excited when I get the munchies because it's a creative endeavor in the kitchen. And it's really fun to just put food together and to eat it and just to have fun using this plant in a different way. I use cannabis so I can eat, so I can live. I don't live to eat. I eat to live. But getting the munchies every now and then is really fun. So that's the segment.
Yes, the munchies are great, right? All right, guys, here it is. The Can Talk segment, the Green Nurses and Munchies.
Hey guys, welcome to Canna Talk. I'm Nurse Mark. I'm here with Nurse Sherry. We're from the Green Nurse.
Oh, and we are really excited. Today is Wellness Wednesday, wise wisdom for wellness. So what Nurse Mark and I do every week is we talk about health awareness topics and how the endocannabinoid system might relate to those topics. So today's topic is about munchies, and what stimulated us to talk about this was that February 22nd to the 28th is National Eating Disorders Awareness Week, where everyone has a seat at the table.
Yes.
So the goal of National Eating Disorders Awareness Week is to shine the spotlight on eating disorders by educating the public, spreading a message of hope, and putting life-saving resources into the hands of those in need.
Exactly. And I don't know about you, Sherry, but I've had a lot of family members who have had eating disorders. Like, it's a serious thing.
Yeah, and there's a couple of different types of eating disorders too. So the anorexia nervosa, and then there's anorexia cachexia wasting syndrome,
which is associated with, you know, cancer diagnosis or HIV. So there is a difference, but the result is the same. It's a wasting of the body.
It's a wasting of the body. So cannabinoids have been huge and pivotal in helping people to regulate their appetite, to stimulate an appetite. And so we're going to talk a little bit about munchies. So it's going to kind of lead into that, because a lot of times too, I've had cannabis patients that have come to me and that have said, you know, I do have a history of anorexia, or I do have a history of bulimia, and I'm concerned that I'm going to get the munchies. I'm concerned that this may trigger me in my history. Right? So it's a total valid concern. So we educate around that. I'm here to tell you that you may or may not get the munchies, but you do have the ability to control it.
Right.
And there's a lot of important tips and tricks. And so we're going to talk about right now, Mark's going to get into how does cannabis trigger the munchies? How?
Right. Right. Okay, let's go. So cannabis triggers the munchies because THC binds to the CB1 receptor, primarily in the brain, right? CB1 receptors are throughout your body, but mostly in your brain. And so THC binds to that receptor, and that increases appetite. So the forebrain part of your brain enhances food palatability. The basal ganglia enhances eating pleasure. The hypothalamus regulates appetite and food intake. And the stomach and the small intestine, they regulate ghrelin, the appetite stimulating hormone.
There you go. And THC changes the function of neurons in your brain. So the neurons that normally play a role in the feelings of feeling full becomes the driver of food intake when exposed to THC. Really, really cool.
Yeah, and THC makes food smell and taste better. It stimulates the olfactory bulb, which is part of the brain responsible for recognizing scents. And in a study conducted by the University of Bordeaux with mice, those dosed with THC significantly increased their ability to smell food and eat more of it, because scent and taste are closely related.
So here we go too. So a little bit more deeper into the neurotransmitter signaling systems. THC promotes the release of dopamine in the basal ganglia of our brain to enhance the sensation of pleasure that comes with a result of eating while you are a little bit elevated. So when THC is present, your body receives an extra push of dopamine from the food that you're eating. Can you imagine if we made the right food choices?
Yeah, you know, dopamine is the pleasure molecule, right? It's like dopamine's rush is associated with anything that feels good. Sex, eating, whatever it happens to be.
So dopamine. So THC increases. So we talk about this hormone, right? This appetiting stimulating hormone that speeds up digestion, ghrelin. So ghrelin is responsible for creating the sensation of hunger that plays a part in metabolizing carbohydrates, which might be why THC causes cravings for carbohydrate-rich foods.
Pizza,
chocolate,
dings, Oreo cookies and milk.
So munchies for medicine. So, you know, a lot of times, so people can think that munchies is bad. Well, guess what? For the cancer patient, for the patient that has HIV and AIDS, for the patient that has cachexia or wasting syndrome, or the patient that has really, really, really difficult time absorbing nutrients, nausea, vomiting, you know.
Now that's where cannabis really started to get its medical marijuana really started to gain a foothold, was back in the beginning of the AIDS epidemic in the United States. And it started out on the West Coast, of course, in San Francisco, where, you know, they noticed that people who consumed cannabis who had AIDS started to have that wasting syndrome. started to eat more. Food
Right.
started to taste better. I was talking to somebody over the weekend who had cancer treatment, and they were in remission, and unfortunately have to go back again because the cancer's back. But what she said is food just didn't taste good. Like they had a metallic taste to it, and I just didn't even want to put it in my mouth. So cannabis is able to alleviate that to some degree, right? And it allows people to start to eat again. And that's huge, because if you're in this, if you're being treated in a disease state, you need to be eating, right? We encourage it all the time, and everything. Healing requires energy, and energy is given to you by food.
So for people that are nervous, this is a really cool concept. So people that are nervous about getting the munchies, what we're going to talk about now is food craving and what that may mean. So,
Right.
This is different. As we know, it stimulates our want for having the carbohydrate-rich foods. But this is just something to think about. If you're craving these specific things, you may need something different.
Right.
So we'll go through those really quickly. But the big one is, I'm just going to say, if you are craving soda, right? Soda, sugary drinks, what might you need? You might need vitamin C, right? So we can find vitamin C in fruits and vegetables.
Yeah, I mean, Sherry, your body is intuitive. Like it knows what it needs on a regular basis. Think about it. Have you ever thought about what your blood pH level is during the day? Have you ever thought about that? I'm just giving you an example, right? You don't.
No.
Your body automatically knows how to regulate your blood pH. And by the way, folks, it's a very narrow window for life to be existing. Like you would die if we deal with it all the time in emergency medicine. If it goes wacky either way, you're done. But your body knows. So your body knows what foods, what nutrients it needs. And so you get these cravings.
We'll do the sugary ones first. So soda, drinks, soda, sugary drinks, chocolate, sweets. We may need vitamin C, magnesium, and sulfur.
Right.
So these different foods that contain it, the colors of the rainbow.
Right. So if you're craving sweets, which is what we do a lot of times when we're I don't know in that mode, right? And maybe have a sulfur deficiency. So where else can you get it? Eggs, garlic, onions, peas, spinach, broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage, kale. Look at all these things.
It's great. It's amazing. There's so many different things that you could completely choose from. So what about salty foods, right? Salty foods, chloride makes sense. So chloride, right? And there's other ways for us to get healthy salt into our diets, not from table salt.
Right. So many.
Yeah. And so then here's another one too. This is pretty, if you're craving breads and toasts and pastas, right? So think about this. Chromium deficiency, nitrogen deficiency. Again, you can get these things from leafy greens, nuts, seeds, legumes, broccoli.
I've made that substitution, Sherry, from breads to those because it's just a healthier choice overall.
Yeah, total healthier choice. So some tips and tricks when you have the healthy. When you have munchies. When you have munchies.
You get now here's the thing, Sherry. You mentioned it early on in the broadcast, right? Not everybody gets the munchies. And a lot of times, I'm going to say this is my opinion only. It's not based on any fact that I have found yet. That when you smoke it, you're getting that THC. You're going to be more likely to have the munchies. But if you eat an edible, that's metabolized to a completely different drug, which we both know, right? Hydroxy, right? So it's a different drug altogether.
I just want to tell you, you don't need to do more. So sometimes people are like, oh, I want the munchies, and I'm just going to keep doing more. Well, I'm telling you, that's not going to happen. Doing more.
Right.
Doesn't mean you're going to get the munchies.
Right.
Okay, so just some tips and tricks for the people that have issues with overeating. I've done teaching with women on this when they wanted to lose weight and wanted to come off of alcohol. So, or wanted to continue to consume alcohol. So I would have people really think about and be cognizant if you did get the munchies, what would you grab for? And if you did get the munchies, think about some of the alternatives that you can have in place
Right.
So that when you do consume something, you're not eating chips and dip. You might be having avocado dip. You know what I mean? Something a little bit more healthier, a better choice.
And it always becomes, it's all about habit. And if you can supplant those other bad habits, the wrong foods with the right foods, if you do it enough times, that'll be your go-to. And
that'll be your go-to.
Oh my God, what's wrong with eating healthy food? A little bit more. No, it's good.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you can use it. You can use it as even a game. So even with people that are have issues with eating due to whatever illness they may have, is that you can look at it as a way to step outside the box of what you normally used to eat. Because I know a ton of people that have had fear about eating, trying new things, and so cannabis helps you decrease that anxiety to get more food in. So it's really about awareness and to understand how this plant interacts in our body that can regulate appetite in multiple different ways.
You heard it here, folks.
You heard it here. So this has been an awesome segment of Canna Talk in the Weeds Prohibition Talk Radio. Join us every Wednesday from 4:20 to 6:20 p.m. with the Green Nurses on Canna Talk.
Everybody's favorite conversation: cannabis and food, right? that was stock-full information sharing.
What's cool is, what I like to do is I like to ask people, what is the craziest thing you've ever created in the kitchen when you've had the munchies? I love to just know that. Like, where do you go? I go to peanut butter.
I just go and play, I guess. I try to make something really good out of something that should never be that good.
I'm a Frankenstein cooker myself when I smoke.
Yeah, I think
turned my toaster sideways once and put like cheese on the bread and then put it in the toaster and then made a grilled cheese that way. I think that was probably like the most stoner food I've ever made.
How'd that work out? Did that actually turn out all right?
Yeah, no, I had to clean the toaster out because the first time I turned it sideways, like all the crumbs and burnt crumbs that sit on the bottom, I was like, oh, I got to dump that out before I start a fire. But no, other than that, it turned out like pretty on point. So it was great.
To make a quick public services announcement, please do not try that at home.
As your lawyer, I would advise.
Right? Especially the ones that squish your bread, right?
Oh.
So, no, I mean.
I want to know what you smoked for that toaster.
It was probably some sour diesel strain. It's New England.
Nice.
Right. Oh man, some of the things. Yeah, actually, I had one of my best stoner dishes last night for dinner was Dorito nachos, man. Like just Doritos chili nachos, man. They're great, perfect nacho. So no, it's amazing how people respond to different strains and how they eat. Mark and Sherry talk about a lot of different things that you can substitute. Like, I think I've personally done a lot of those things where it's like you're incorporating nuts and raisins and more of these,
foods,
what we consider like your childhood snacks is back into your diet, right? Because of the healthier things, keeping out the processed flours is another big thing. Breads, processed flours, things like that, is another huge help to keep weight off, right?
Food, fried food, fast food, fake food, fried food, fast food, artificial flavors, artificial coloring, trans fat, hydrogenated oils, high fructose corn syrup, and sugar.
Yep.
Downregulate the endocannabinoid system.
Those are usually the biggest ones.
My sharing size / family size of almond M&Ms are probably not in the correct diet plan.
Well, almonds aren't going to hurt you, and a little chocolate never hurt nobody, right?
Here's the thing too, chocolate, if it's made from cacao actually stimulates CB2 receptors in our gut. So, and we know, right? So cacao actually does support and nourish our endocannabinoid system, and cacao is found in dark chocolate. So just keep the sugar down and just do a little bit.
Right.
Just keep it down. So now we're going to talk to Tim here a little bit. Let's get Tim fired off on a few things. Not a lot going on, crazy news this week, but there's a lot of states that are doing a lot of different things, from Pennsylvania to New Jersey to New York to the Dakotas. We say both north and south. All having to do with kids.
Pretty big news, man. I would consider New Jersey, probably as far as the East Coast
Yeah.
goes, one of the most biggest pieces of news this year so far, to be honest, as far as practical application.
Well, now we're there, right? Basically, we signed it off yesterday. Is that?
The governor signed the bill. It's done. They're legal. It's now done. You remember, 2 weeks ago, you were saying, "Oh, there's all this stuff falling. New Jersey's not going to go. It's all going to get scrapped." This is all the fear mongering. And what did I say? I said, "No, it's not." And what happened? Sure enough, at the very last minute, legislators sent a bill that addressed what Phil Murphy, the governor of New Jersey's concerns were, basically surrounding underage possession penalties. And that was it. Boom, done, signed. And now New Jersey is officially the 13th adult use state. And what I do believe will be the spark to the wick of the rest of the East Coast. This is it. This is New York is now not going to be far behind. Pennsylvania is not going to be far behind. Virginia, we saw it today, even in, what I call the outlier states that we never thought were going to go. North Dakota passes through their house, which is incredible. South Dakota, we saw some challenges, which, I really hope, if precedent in Oklahoma and Florida is any example, are not going to be successful. So though that, as far as the practical implications for the industry, New Jersey going is enormous. You're talking about a region that has 60 million people, almost double the population of California when you look at the entire New York metropolitan area. And it's huge. It's huge. We just, had a significant percentage increase in the amount of Americans who now have and live in a jurisdiction with legal cannabis. Fantastic. One of the single most things that could influence federal change. There's only so long the federal government can ignore this when you're talking about markets like New York City, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania.
Well, here we go now with New York kind of getting back in the news again, talking about, again, the first joint legislative hearing has been penned. There was a couple of things that got added on, basically growing at home and being able to smoke, right, in the last couple of weeks. How are we looking? Do you think anything will happen in New York, or are we just going to be back and forth?
It will now. New York was under no big pressure, other than a theoretical pressure before New Jersey passed. It hadn't passed there yet. Nobody had moved first. Everybody knew it had to happen. Everybody knew it was going to happen, but everyone also had breathing time to worry about their agendas. You're talking about New York. I come from New York City. The bureaucracy in Albany is insane. It's practically its own country. So trying to get through, there's so many special interests. Yeah, Nikki, you're from Buffalo, right? You know what it's like. So while there was no extreme pressure on the legislature, while there wasn't any actual tax dollars flowing into New Jersey quite yet, it allowed that time for everyone to jockey for position, try to establish them, try to make sure the tax revenue, they got their share of it, make sure everybody's, their particular constituents' concerns were addressed. Now that it has actually happened in New Jersey, now that kind of time is done. Now it has to happen. There was only so long Albany will allow money to flow into Trenton from New York. New Jersey and New York love each other, don't get me wrong. But there's also, a serious budget deficiency because of COVID. There are a lot of deficits that need to be filled. And now that New Jersey's moved forward and are the first mover, New York's no longer the first mover. I anticipate if it doesn't happen this year, I would bet the house it happens in 2022. And I think there's a good chance that they'll get something through now this year.
Yep.
Awesome. Just to back up, the problem is, though, Governor Cuomo has lost a lot of political capital due to a, unrelated scandal with nursing homes and COVID and not proper reporting. So that is the one factor that might put this off a year. He has been a very, very strong proponent for this, but he has lost a lot of his kind of clout, so to say. That may influence this. It may not. We'll have to see.
All right.
I was involved in the legalization efforts for 2 years up until this year because it was just so defeating. We really thought it was going to pass last year. But it's all about the CRTA versus the MRTA. One is by the governor and one is by the people. We obviously, the one that we want is the MRTA, but now Cuomo has put some amendments to his CRTA to try and put the equitable piece in it, but it still sounds like pretty much scandalous.
Yep.
pieces of legislation.
Legislation, and it's difficult. It's difficult to get it done legislatively. We have the same problems here in Vermont because
Yep.
by nature you need compromise, and compromise means you need to accept things you don't like.
Yeah.
People in Vermont had a very, very, very hard time with that. People want to be perfect, Bill. And there was a lot of talk of, well, we can't build the plane while we're flying it. And unfortunately, in this type of situation, it's exactly what you got to do. You got to get something over the finish line, because then your activists can start working on making the changes that are necessary. You can start getting past the fear. A lot of the compromise in legislative process is based on fear. Is these prohibitions, oh my God, what happens if it opens up in our town? Oh my God, the sky's gonna fall, we're all gonna die. This type of mentality. And then what happens is you pass it, it opens, and it's about as exciting as a liquor store. After the first few weeks, it's not a big deal. People go, they buy their cannabis, and they go home and consume it. And all of these horrible manifestations of junkies are gonna be hanging out there and kids are gonna be getting marijuana. Kids gonna be getting marijuana, you freaking kidding me? You put it behind a counter, put 2 forms of ID, with owners who know that if they get stung, they're gonna be, lose everything they put into this, are gonna be selling to a minor. It just doesn't make any logical sense. Fear-based arguments generally don't. And when you see those fear-based arguments not manifest themselves after legalization, it becomes much easier to get through sane and rational regulation. Once those fears have been dispelled, once people can see with their own eyes that dispensaries open and the world doesn't end, the sky doesn't fall.
Right.
People don't, go wild and screaming and on rampages and murdering and jumping off buildings. It just happens. And then you can get some sane, rational regulation. So that's what I'm hoping happens here in Vermont. I'm certainly hoping the same, or some similar process in New York.
Yeah. That's why I brought up knowing New York and where we are, and where Nikki brought up a lot of great points about the struggles with the New York medical marijuana system, which is non-existent, right? So, in a state the size of New York, right, and with the influence and power that you think that Cuomo in the state would have, that you guys would be one of the front runners, right? But Tim makes a great point.
There's a huge discrepancy in New York too, because if you live in New York City, no problem. There's delivery services. There's a truck that stands in the corner you can go buy joints from. For the last year, it's been basically a free for all. But you live in upstate, you live in Albany, you live in Buffalo, you live in Syracuse, you live in Rochester. It's a lot more difficult. You have police forces that still are going after people and arresting people. If you're black or brown, God forbid, in the city, then you still have a lot of problems. So there's this real kind of disparity in New York between the city, upstate, where you have a lot of patients that aren't getting the same quality of medicine. Their medical system doesn't allow for smoking, I believe. It's like you can get suppositories and oil, and that's Yeah, I mean, it's I'm being a little facetious, but it is it's an incredibly challenging, incredibly restrictive program. I believe there's 10 licenses for medical, and each of those can have 4 dispensaries, 2 of which are in the metropolitan area that get all the financing and funding, and then 2 in rural areas that I bet really probably aren't what they should be. And who suffers because of this? The medical patients. That's who's hurting the most.
It's a problem.
Yeah.
Curaleaf's tried to get around it, and I think Columbia Care now has. But you're right, 10, dispensaries, registered organizations, that is not acceptable.
No,
and I mean, the ridiculous amounts for licensing fees. I mean, it's absolutely prohibitive for anyone of less than $1 billion to enter the market. I mean, really. Oklahoma's doing it right. I mean, $5,000 gets you a business license at a dispensary. And it's a free-for-all. It's like truly the Wild West, but they have 10% of their per capita patients by population are medical patients in Oklahoma. I mean, in Oklahoma, hello.
They passed. Well, this is ballot initiative versus legislation. They passed a ballot initiative in Oklahoma that basically said you have the right to have cannabis if you have any medical condition which cannabis helps.
Amazing.
Beautiful. And what happened immediately after implementation? Both the governor and the legislature tried to be like, no, we can't do that. We can't do that. They tried passing all these restrictive laws, the exact same pattern that happened in Florida. And thankfully, in both states, the Supreme Court said, you don't get to do that. You cannot put up significant barriers which would impede a voter-backed initiative. And your restrictive regulations that are basically stifling the industry go in direct, opposition to what was legally passed by the people, and you can't do it. And it happened in Oklahoma, and it happened in Florida, which is, exactly why in some cases, voter initiatives and ballot initiatives beat the legislative process. There's arguments for the other side too, and we can get, I've been in very lengthy arguments on this one, but that is definitely one of the indisputable facts, is that once a voter initiative is passed, it is very, very difficult for prohibitionists, even the governor, even the legislators, even people in power, to really, and South Dakota is about to go through the same thing, to get it to be able to stymie it. It's hard to stop the will of the people in ballot initiative states, and that is that's a good thing. That's a really good thing.
Right.
We'll see what happens in South Dakota.
Yep. Like you keep trying to fight them and go back around the legislative way to a ballot initiative. It's what the people want, right? Speaking of that though, so we have Merrick Garland was finally signed in, right? He's official, so we're good to go there. We know what we got. So we got 4 years of Mr. Garland. So I'm excited to see what he has to say. But one of the big things that he talked about this week was cannabis. Jailing people for cannabis use is wrong, right? So he's going to support legal states. Tim, do we have any incarnation of what to expect from Garland? I know his talk has been quiet, but
I don't think we're going to see anything dramatic. Cannabis to him is pretty much a non-issue, meaning he doesn't have any real strong feelings about it one way or another. He's not Cory Booker. He's not out there, waving around an MPP flag, getting ready to legalize. He did say that we, with limited resources, have much more important things to worry about, especially in state legal states. And that is practical, rational, and common sense in my mind. The Attorney General of the United States does not need to worry about criminal prosecutions for possession or small marijuana offenses. It's ridiculous. It always is ridiculous. In fact, the Department of Justice shouldn't be involved in police actions at all. Police actions were left to the states by the Constitution very clearly. However, if the federal government is going to pursue criminal prosecutions, it should be for things that have very, 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 very dramatic, drastic impacts on the nation as a whole. One of my clients right now is potentially being threatened in the District of Vermont with prosecution for what amounts to possession of a couple ounces of weed. And I'm really, really hoping, our U.S. attorney just got fired and a new one's going to be appointed, and I'm hoping with this new policy that's coming out of the DOJ now, we are going to see that threat of prosecution go away. I'm really hoping, and this is the third now marijuana prosecution in the last year I've dealt with. And our District of Vermont basically took the position that, well, the state's not prosecuting anymore, so now it's our responsibility to prosecute these cases. And the previous directions from the Department of Justice was prosecute all cases to the maximum extent possible. That was the Trump administration's Department of Justice priority. Bust them all, prosecute them at the highest level of prosecution you can. End of story, no matter what the case was. Now we are seeing that obviously be revoked. Obviously, we're getting back to a more sane, more rational, more reasonable criminal justice system at that level. There's been a lot of talk about the disparate impact of marijuana prosecution on the BIPOC community. Merrick Garland himself mentioned that not only under questioning, but raised it upon himself as well later on in his questioning. So a pretty good indication. And this is a very, very intelligent man. This is the judge, he was a prosecutor at the Timothy McVeigh trial, which was extremely well done. It wasn't, flash in the media. It wasn't, he didn't use it as a platform for his own career. He prosecuted it intelligently, smartly, quickly, boom, done. And that's the type of guy we want in the Department of Justice. And I think this is, again, you're not going to see him come out, headlining a normal meeting or conference. But you're not going to see anything like Sessions or even Bill Maher in terms of priorities.
Right. No, I'm excited for that because everything looks
great.
Right. Probably guys like Reed, who cares, right? The states will figure it out, right? That's right.
Predominant thought in the federal government right now. That's the kind of bent you're most likely to see, which is we're not going to legalize it on a national level, but we will formally allow states to make up their own minds on this. And if Idaho wants to still send people to jail, great, don't go to Idaho. And if everyone else wants to legalize it, great, the federal government's not going to interfere. That, I'm okay with that. I really, really am. I think that's a good way to go. This has been a state-based initiative since the beginning, since California pioneered it, almost 25 years ago now. It's been a state-by-state basis. I'd like to see some consistently. I'd like to see a national industry I would like to see, but that could be adopted voluntarily between the states. We don't necessarily need the federal government involved in this. Frankly, keep it illegal. Don't be taxing it. Don't worry about federal regulation. You know, they're well on their way to screwing up hemp. So let's go ahead and leave this to the states and not, you know, have like DEA certified lab requirements and all this ridiculousness.
Well, what happens? Well, what happens? Let's say it stays in this format and we continue rolling in this fashion. What happens to open trade though between states? Is that still governed federally, or is that open to the states at that point?
So that would invoke the Commerce Clause, and it would allow federal intervention if the feds wanted to get involved. But they could very easily pass a thing saying that if 2 states agree that they can transfer it through it, then that's fine. You know, this can be left to the states completely. The feds do not need to get involved just because they have the ability to get involved. And if they want to say, you know, if you know, states want to have a compact to allow cannabis transportation and they want to agree on a set of standards, and we can have a New England compact where there's a license issued that has, you know, a bill of lading that has a COA that has been verified, and that's okay. And Maine and New Hampshire, well, not New Hampshire, but you know, Maine, Massachusetts, Vermont, New York, Connecticut.
Don't worry about it.
States that have legalized want to acknowledge that and want to allow for this to happen, then it should. And I think that you'll see these regional compacts. And like I said, you can have national standards, you can have consistency that's voluntarily agreed upon by the states without necessarily having a federal agency dictate those rules.
Right. That's awesome. Well, that's good to know, because I think that's one of the biggest questions and one of the biggest things that people are worried about, concerned with, and we see the most issues with is in interstate travel with products, right?
I don't know if we want that. You know, I think some states would benefit better from that. One of the things that I'm so excited about Vermont, for example, is that our entire industry needs to be produced in Vermont.
Yeah.
Where, you know, nobody's going to be shipping in, you know, bulk crap cartridges from, you know, wherever to sell in our dispensaries. There's not going to be, you know, low cost crap weed being imported in to flood our market. All of our edibles, all of our concentrates, all of our flour, everything needs to be grown, produced, harvested, made, tested, and controlled in Vermont by Vermonters from our dispensaries. I love that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think that is fantastic. Our 1 license limit is really just been so far an incredible idea. Everybody in the state, you know, you can vertically integrate, you can have cultivation, you can have manufacturing, you can have a lab, you can have wholesale, you can have a dispensary, and you can have exactly 1 of each.
Mm-hmm.
No 5 dispensaries, no 10, no 2, 1. Which is a complete, you know, it dissuades any type of corporation that uses economies of scale. They're all focused on the major markets. It allows for ownership by Vermonters. We're having a low cost, very similar to Oklahoma, very accessible market.
Yep.
You know, one of our craft cultivation licenses, we're anticipating for 1,000 square foot commercial grow, $2,500.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Low zoning, low regulation. This is what's going to allow Vermonters to get involved. And we're going to be selling to tourists for $80 an eighth because we're Vermont. You know, that's that Vermont thing. And so I think in some cases, the lack of interstate it can actually help, especially in the you know, the beginning of an industry. Let it be state controlled. Let that state, you know, Maine is doing real well. Massachusetts had a little rough start, but that was, you know, because of the pages and pages and pages of bureaucracy. Now, as the industry matures, as we get, you know, more mature, as it grows, is it inevitable we're going to have interstate? Absolutely. And there's good and bad to that. There is good because there's consistency. There is good because businesses can, you know, capitalize on that scale of economy. But the crop becomes commoditized. It becomes commodity. And then it's, you know, so pluses and minuses on both sides of it. But I kind of am excited to see what happens as things progress the way they are now.
Yeah, no, it's a great market plan, especially the one license. I mean, one of the issues, like, you know, I think Mass, when they open up their market, we're trying to keep out the corporations, but the minute 3 months into a non-corporate owned dispensary, they're selling out, right, to the corporations, and then they try to put a handcuff on how many entities they could own within the state, and they, like you said, they were just hiding their entities, right? They're hiding their money, their interest in these things. So it created a really weird market, right? So hopefully the Vermont market goes. I like the Oklahoma idea. I can't wait to see New York hopefully jump on. We even got Montana, right? Montana's even getting on board here. So there's a lot of discussion going on in Montana of all places. We were talking about places that we never even thought about, right? One thing you brought up, Tim, that I saw today, I don't know if you got a chance to read up on this yet or not, but the U.S. Hemp Authority has announced its release of the Guidance Procedures 3.0, a revised version of the 2.0 standards. So we have a new list of standards, guys. So if you're in the hemp market and you're in the hemp game, you might want to check those out. Have you had a chance to look at those yet, Tim?
I saw that they came out with some modifications. I have not yet had a chance to take a look at them. We just had a new head of the USDA that's been appointed. Actually, he was confirmed. Somebody will check. Same head of the USDA under Obama. So I would anticipate that anything even we see today is most likely going to change again. Once he's fully established in there. And then what everybody has to remember is that the Farm Bill, the big Farm Bill that legalized hemp, well, that was 2018. They redo that every 4 years, which means next year we're going to have a new Farm Bill, which could rewrite the whole landscape for hemp as well. Vermont in particular, this is why I kind of haven't been. Our Department of Ag is like, hey, we're sticking to our 4014 pilot program, use CBD, do whatever you want. We'll do voluntary compliance checks. We have a great hemp industry here. We have an incredibly lightly regulated, incredibly accessible. So they're basically ignoring the USDA regulations for the time being. And we'll see what happens with the new head and the new Farm Bill next year.
All right. Well, I'm excited for all of this newness that we're going to experience here. Now we're going to slip right over to Justin here. We're kind of running out of time. I'll make sure we can wrap up the show properly with Nikki. We have a great strain of the week to talk about this week. A great medical strain. I'm excited to have Justin on board with us from the Bud Grower to discuss all things growing and things flowering and things planting, right?
Blooming.
So a real fun one, a real stinky fun one today that you guys did for us. Let's talk about the strain of the week and how much fun you're having with that right now.
Yeah. So I moved here about a year ago from New Hampshire. They don't get it over there, but when I moved here, the predominant strain back home is usually something from sour diesel, or that's really what I smoked. And then when I came here, there was like just a whole nother world of strains that I could try, and was just way more readily accessible to me. And I would say that most of these strains that I've tried, I wasn't a huge fan of, just because it was either too high or too low, depending, like indica or sativa. It wasn't there. This strain, King Louis, is actually becoming, I think, one of my all-time favorite strains, simply because of the clarity that I get from it and the pain relief side of things. I mean, I surf all the time here in LA, usually on the weekends, and my chest muscle, like in this area particular, is just like killing me all the time, and it's only getting worse as I'm getting older. So it's like, I have to find something. But our graphic designer and I tried this a couple days ago, and she actually worked with the company that grew it. I didn't know. And she's like, yeah, let's go smoke this. I was like, well, I don't want to smoke like a whole joint of this. I still have work to do. And she's like, no, you're going to be fine. And I was like, all right. And lo and behold, it was great. I loved it. The clarity, like the energy, the positivity from it was like magnificent. I loved it. So this is quickly becoming my favorite strain, King Louis.
A lot of those strains, King Louis is a great strain. I've had the chance to try it out here. What's nice about those is you make a good point. It's kind of like a heavy sedative, but it makes you want to get up and do things, right?
Yeah.
So it's not like you want to sit on your couch. You kind of sit there for a minute and you're like, man, and all these ideas flood through your head and you go do it and you feel good doing it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. You don't get locked in your head. You're not like, oh, I'm weird,
So when we talk about hybrids and unique strains like that, that's another great one. It's almost like a green crack kind of a strain where when you first initially smoke it, you're just like, whoa, what did I do to myself? And then all of a sudden you're like, you want to run through a wall. It's kind of like a Bruce Banner, something typically on the heavy THC side that takes you for a loop at first, and then you want to go do something. It's great. You get stuff done. But it's I love how you're taking your strains and then you utilize them in these fashions of bringing it into your life and actually trying it, right? Because you bring it up in the videos, which is great. So here we go, guys. We'll get right into the strain of the week with Justin C. from the Bud Grower. And then when we get back, there's a couple of things I want to ask you about the differences in the market. Now we'll get Nikki and Tim and Sherry here because we touched on some things from the West Coast. We touched about things out here. And you bring up a great point, which when Brandon was on the show, he was out in Phoenix. So we would talk about cultivars that were popular in our areas. And it was like, he's on a totally different level out there than we even see out here. And he's like, dude, I haven't seen Northern Lights since I left Vermont, kind of like you, like sour diesel, which is kind of funny because you have a Cali sour diesel and you New York sour diesels, right? So, it's not like Cali shouldn't have sour diesel, but we in Vermont love it, right? It's a great cultivar to grow out here. It works well with our situations here in Vermont. But yeah, so cultivars are great. Strains are great. Nikki hit on a bunch of great topics with strains earlier, so this is fun. It's here we go, guys. This is the strain of the week.
Hi guys, welcome to this week's strain of the week, brought to you by the Bud Grower, In the Weeds TV, and the Green Nurse. The strain that we chose to cover this week is a popular one amongst medical users, and it's called Cannabis. You don't need to have an in-depth history of plants in order to understand the benefits of cannabis. But I will say that there is a lot in common with how 17th century monarchs and this strain smell. So we're going to open this up and we're going to talk all things about it. Right from the bat, this guy stinks. This is a mixture of a few different terpenes. One is myrcene, which is a very earthy and flavorful tone. You have a lot of pine kind of scent, a very, very strong diesel smell, and a little bit of citrus in there. And that's due to both the limonene, the myrcene, and the cereophyllene. They all work together to create a nice blend of earthy, rich odors, but also with a hint of citrus. Guys, I'm going to go out and say that I have 4 cannabis plants growing in my office, and this jar of blood has literally permeated my whole office. Let's go ahead and break down the terpenes for medical plants. The myrcene gives off a very spicy, earthy, hoppy smell, and this works as an anti-inflammatory, antibiotic, and sedative kind of nature for a terpene. And a lot of people use this for arthritis, sore muscles, aches and pains, and if you're working out and you want to relax, it's a really good one. The caryophyllene has a very peppery, clovey scent to it. Another medical benefit of that terpene is that it's to actually boost your immune system, which is very positive. And lastly, the limonene adds a fruity, citrusy zest to an otherwise earthy smell. So I actually did some history here, and King Louis XIV is the longest reigning monarch in European history, 72 years, which is about as long as that smell is going to last in my office. It is literally as if Pepe Le Pew is showing. It is literally like Pepe Le Pew is hanging out. It's 30.46% THC. The total THC is 25.66%. Total CBD is 20.04%. And then total THCA is 28.27%. This thing is literally just straight THC, nothing else. So yeah, definitely do this when you get home. I will say though, I do feel less sore. I'm a very active person. I surf out here in California, and I'm very sore after a full weekend of doing that. So I'm feeling a lot more relaxed. I'm feeling like my legs, my calf muscles are burning. They're fine now. I'm feeling all right. I'm feeling pretty mellow. I'm feeling less pain in all my joints, in the back, shoulders. I just feel a lot better. Yeah, this is, I would say, as strong as it is, this is an amazing one to take when you get home and enjoy your night. I'm still high functioning. I'm still functioning really well. looking to stay informed, check out In the Weeds TV, the Green Nurse, and the Bud Grower. If you're looking to grow or learn more just about the growing process, we're always available to answer any sort of questions that you may have. If you're a beginner grower, if you're an experienced grower, we have a full staff here ready to answer anything you may need. Check our links below. Check our Instagram, our Twitter, our Facebook, even our website. I write about growing all the time. And what we're going to do now is we're going to play you out with some product shots of the actual bud. So I hope you guys enjoyed. Hope you had fun, and I'll see you next week.
Man, you looked like you enjoyed that strain.
Yeah. Clearly, I got one rolled up right now. I'm ready to smoke it.
As I'm watching that video, I'm like, I could tell you're smoking between the segments because you get high energy, clear eyes to a little bit lower energy, a little more blasted eyes. It's great. No, another great segment talking about King Louis. It's a great strain. You can find it pretty much nationwide now. It's really popular with carts. You know what I mean? I've seen it with carts and products like that pretty much everywhere, which is not uncommon with the cart market. But it does have a great flavor. It does have a great taste to it, right? Like you said, that looked like a beautiful bud. Where did you guys end up getting that from?
We ended up getting it from Divine Wellbeing Wellness Center. They're located just right down the street from us in Canoga Park here in California. And they're a really awesome place. Definitely check them out.
Must not be a bad thing to have somebody just right down the street, right?
Yeah. Actually, this plant behind me is a clone that I picked up. Talk about what kind of different things are going on in different sections of the country. I can literally just get clones delivered to my house. So
that's amazing.
Yeah,
that's just not fair. I mean, now we talked about earlier. Now you're out in California. You came from New Hampshire, which we kind of look at and laugh at quite a bit in the cannabis industry. No offense, New Hampshire, but
I don't.
You're out in California. We're talking about a lot about the New England cultures and what was going on out here. But California's facing a big problem too with even getting out to patients. So people like with Nikki, even if she was in the California market, she still could face numerous issues with getting her own medicine, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's totally true. One of the biggest solutions that we've always encountered here is because of all of these things that are going on with COVID and just stores shutting down. Luckily, legal cannabis is still considered an essential position if you're selling it or you own a store. But a lot of people here are switching to home grow methods simply because they just don't want to go out. And especially being in Los Angeles, I mean, our city just in California has about 4 times the amount of people in a very condensed area versus somewhere more rural in New England. So people are a lot more cautious here about COVID, and it's really stopping them from going out. And they're actually saying hey, I want to grow it myself. I want to grow it the right way. I want to do those things. So one of the biggest industry shifts that we've seen out here is the home grow market. And it allows patients to from start to finish grow what they want to grow. Mm-hmm. Another big thing too is when you leave it up to kind of a market, I'm not saying anything about capitalism, but a free market for it. A lot of dispensaries now are not carrying certain strains that might help you. So, let's say that I really like King Louis, but a lot of people are moving away from that into other avenues. Now my store isn't selling it. Now I have to go find someplace else. It's a hassle. It's hard. All I can do is I could literally get clones delivered to my house and I can grow in my house. And that's such an industry shift as to what it was like before here, or even, it's really just taking it to the next step in providing a service for both medical and recreational use.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. We're just getting our delivery system set up on the East Coast, man. We get our medical flower delivered to us, right? Curbside's another amazing thing that's been able to help a lot of people through the pandemic. Hopefully it's something we'll be able to see post-pandemic as places look like they're starting to open up here and there and everywhere. And hopefully the norm will get back to the norm that we know it to be. We hope, you know what I mean? But no, that's amazing that you guys have that option. I mean, like, you know, that's the one thing that we're talking about is, can we get a clone shipped to Vermont? You know what I mean? I know there's companies that will ship us a clone in a bag with water kind of thing, and it'll get to me and I can probably plant it and it might work. But is there a legal issue with that? You know what I mean? And that's
You're crossing state borders. Yeah.
Right.
It's funny though. When I just set up this tent, the first plant that I grew in my tent was actually the seed that I got from England. It was a mixture of black venom and Lebanon bloodfire Lebanon, sorry. And it was just this really heavy metal strain. I was like, I love this. This is rad. Like, it's cool, but it cost me $25 or 19 pounds, and I had to get it shipped in from England. So, you know, there's just way more variety here, and there's way more things for medical patients to choose from than it is. And it will eventually pick up in the New England area. We've just, you know, with California and both Colorado, we've kind of had a little bit more time to develop better technologies and more effective methods. So, you know, you guys are on the right track out in New England, except for New Hampshire, obviously. And
I'll get there. I'll get there.
They have no choice.
You know, it's funny because when I started growing in New Hampshire, the first 2 times that I grew, I guess my energy company was monitoring my bill. And I had like the police come, they took my stuff. I had 2 like tiny seedlings, like there was nothing, they just confiscated it. They're like, nope, you can't have this anymore. I was like, how did you know? Like,
they know.
Yeah, the energy company sold me upriver. So
it's just ridiculous. It's so silly. I don't know if you knew Matt Simon. He was.
I love Matt.
Yeah, you know Matt.
I've worked with
Matt
him considerably.
So
yep. He just got out of there too. I had worked, you know, with the legalization movement for about 5 years out there, and you know, I did everything I could to work in the industry, and that's because that's what I like to do. It's my passion, and I just was like, look, I started this almost 5 years ago. We've been doing this, and every year it's like, yeah, we're going to get there. And most of the time it makes it to the governor's desk, and it doesn't matter which governor it is, and they just veto it. And, you know, even when we try to overrule it, it gets shut down. So it's like, it's just a mess. There's no real reason other than they're making some money off arresting people, or like, you know, one of the biggest threats actually New Hampshire poses is for other states in the surrounding area. You have all these back roads that you're driving through. So if you're in Mass and you pick up, you know, you know, you go to your dispensary, you take a wrong turn. Now you're in New Hampshire, like, you know, or Vermont or
that
Maine,
happened to a friend 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
They were in Mass, picked up some stuff, came to Vermont, got pulled over in New Hampshire.
It's
got
absurd.
$500 worth of tickets.
Oh God. It's
everybody in the car got the same ticket, 2 people.
It's yeah. I mean, that's what it's just avoid it. New Hampshire's gonna lose out on so much, and they're gonna realize it's already too late as far as I'm concerned. That you know, I wish that it will, because I know that it can pick up pretty quick, but other than that, I just don't see it. I don't see it.
New Hampshire's a big mystery to us because it's like us, you know. I mean, New Hampshire, Maine, Vermont, we're all tourist attractions. We have ski resorts, winter, summer, spring, fall type of things to be here for, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Foliage seasons, like Tim was saying, like it's not uncommon for New Yorkers to pay $75, $80 for an eighth of weed coming from Vermont, right? And when they come to Vermont, what's everybody want when they come to these states is everybody's looking for the weed, right? Everybody's going to shows, they're talking to the sound guy, they're talking to the guys outside the place, hey, where can I get some weed, right? It would just be great to see a system that would accept them and allow them to get what they want when they're here, to be legal, to enjoy themselves, and to not have a threat of being in jail or breaking laws, where they can go outside and follow, you know, just basic smoking rules. You know what I mean? Like, as campus users, we're in the bathrooms, we're hiding, we're doing these things to be discreet, but, you know, still breaking laws. But, you know, if I can smoke outside like anybody else can smoke a cigarette, I'll go out and smoke cigarette smoke and smoke my blood. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'll be happy to follow those laws and those rules and whatever kind of comes into those plays, right? Tim?
Cannabis tourist industry is so big. This is why it's so big here. You're going on vacation. Think about all the times you've been on vacation in a hotel. How many times have you found yourself in a hotel bathroom, trying to smoke a joint or take a vape and blow it up into the fan up there, or blow it down into the toilet, or run around back and, hang out with the cooks, by the dumpsters and hope nobody narcs you out. I mean, come on, as an adult, I've been doing this. How nice would it be to be able to go to a bed and breakfast in a place like Vermont or New Hampshire and know that when you get there, there's, 2 joints waiting, like a mint on your pillow. And okay, maybe you have to go outside to the gazebo, or maybe there's a dedicated area, but that you can go and it's okay and you're allowed, and you can meet other travelers there who
like
also
my people.
And you can go out and then you can go ahead and do your cross-country skiing or your leaf peeping, your mountain bike ride, and knowing that you are going to be able to come back and then consume more good Vermont cannabis.
Yeah.
Even these,
no more sneaking around in the bathroom. No
right.
more cops are going to show up. You're going
I don't have to blow into a paper
room
towel tube. Yeah.
Or even the consumption bars, right? Like consumption bars, we should have them in every major place, right? Where it's just no different than any sort of other bar for alcohol, right? It's a place you can consume. It's safe.
You talk about it too with New Hampshire, like legalizing. It's everyone's going to go there. Everyone is going to flood New Hampshire simply because, I mean, we're going to keep our taxes lower than any of the surrounding areas. It's just like alcohol. How many people drive into Nashua from Massachusetts to buy tax $5 6-pack versus a $9 6-pack? It's things like that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Cigarettes, things like that.
Waste, for Christ's sake.
Yeah, they're like such a central portion that could be like so great for the area, yet they just deny it every time.
Right.
Right.
Yep.
You can pull right into the liquor store right off of the main highway and get some cannabis. It'd be great,
Yeah.
That was the one thing I never really ever understood in my life. It's like the liquor store on the side of the highway. It's not like you've been going home or in your neighborhood. It's just like you're on the highway.
And the state owns that. They're like, we don't condone drinking and driving. No.
But like you said, and then they pack the highway with cops. So it's just it's entrapment in my opinion. It's funny how we can be so hypocritical with these things that we talk about every day and look at cannabis and still hold a stigma to it. You know what I mean? Especially when we talk about things, we hear stories, we see the research, in these states and like Oregon and California, all these reports come back with, traffic issues and substance abuse issues dropping. You know what I mean? And we see it a lot. And we all know somebody who's been saved off of opioids, who's been saved off of painkillers. The opioid thing we talk about a lot. The pharmaceuticals is the next big thing we have to talk about. You know what I mean? Is getting people off these pharmaceuticals, and allowing help and resources for them to do that. Which is, we do it with opioids, but we're not utilizing cannabis help, right? Like if you go to cannabis and you're trying to get off opioids, you get kicked out of programs. That should stop as well, right? These programs should be open and allow these to be an option, right? Not to be the cure, but at least an option, right? Let's let these guys have an option. So when you're on Suboxone and you want to kick it because it's ruining your life and you want to use cannabis because it's working, the state will allow you to, right? And you're not going to go to jail. You're not going to, face more criminal charges or probations because you smoke some weed, right?
Yeah.
And then, like you said, the right to grow your own, which has been a big issue in New York, which is I'm also floored by how you could, legalize something in a state where you can't grow your own, or be like Florida for a while there, where you couldn't even smoke. Like there was a ban on smokable cannabis, right? So Florida's coming a long ways, man, right? So Florida's another state that's heavily in the news right now. We're talking about hopefully seeing legalized. We got Montanas, we got the Missouris, we've got the Dakotas, right? Pennsylvania is even getting on the map now, and we've discussed Pennsylvania in a while. But like Tim said, for a minute here, it's all about everybody's looking at New Jersey, right? So now New Jersey's dropped, they're signed off, they're legal. Let's see where we go, how the rest of the East Coast catches up, and I'm excited, man.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's about all we got for this week, guys. I want to thank our awesome guest, Nikki, for sharing your story with us. It was an amazing story, and it just, like I said, it's a powerful story. It really touches people's hearts because it's, you kind of put some credentials to it. It's not, Joe Smith, the stoner, going, "Hey, weed's great for you," right? As I'm smoking my blunt here with my weed hat on, right? You're in the industry. became a patient, and just that alone, that story right there is compelling enough, because that's something that people need to discuss too, because you're seeing both sides there, and you saw the discrepancies. You're a living discrepancy if you really want to consider that. You know what I mean? Being pushed through a system of, and like we talk about medical challenges, like we talk about police challenges. You know what I mean? Like, these guys are working double shifts. It's just constant go, 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 go. There's no rest. There's no relaxation. And when you're facing a slew of patients, you just try to get in and get out and do the best that you can to the knowledge that you've been equipped with, right? So when someone comes in that has issues, who's trying to talk to you, sometimes they don't have the time. But that's the issue we're talking about, right? This is where we need to change in our medical industry, to sit down with patients and realize that what was working for our last 3 patients isn't working for Nikki, isn't working for Sister Suzanne. This isn't the life they want to live. Not everybody wants to drool on themselves with pharmaceuticals all day long. Some people love that. Hey, more power to them. But I'm glad to see you up. You're active. You can share your story. I'm glad to see Cannabis helps. For myself, like I said, I kind of share the same story. I had a bad head injury years ago that I suffered drastically with for 3 years. I couldn't listen to music. I couldn't watch TV. I couldn't be doing what we're doing right now without cannabis, really. So it touches my heart. And again, thank you for spending your time with us, Nikki. Now, how can people find you, hear more about your story, and reach out to you if they'd like to?
Sure. I'm on Facebook and LinkedIn, as well as Instagram under Nikki Lawley, and Nikki, and then Lawley is Lawley. You can also find me at nikkiandtheplant.org, and I have a Facebook page, Nikki and the Plant.
Awesome. Again, Nikki, thank you for coming on. Thank you for spending some time with me off camera and all this week, talking about all the fun things we get to talk about. And one thing I want to tell you too, between all this and researching and doing everything I did and stalking you and all this fun stuff that we do for the show, not that I'm a stalker, but you know what I mean, is your husband. High five to your husband through all this. Like, he's really the one that helped facilitate this all, right? He's the one that stood by your side and all this. And for stigmas, right? We talk about stigmas and what you must have faced being a nurse and the patient and then going to cannabis, how much of a stigma you must have gotten from either friends, families, and professionals. But for your husband, huge salute to him, right? So high five to him for being there for you, because without him, I'm afraid, I wouldn't know where you'd be today, right?
Right. I wouldn't be here without him. I mean, I never would have found the plant if he hadn't made me go to Vegas. I mean, the universe has a crazy way of making everything work the right way. And I feel like I believe more in universe stuff than I ever have in my life. Everything really happens for a reason. And my injury happened for a reason. And I'm here today to share it for a reason. Somebody here.
How cool is it to find, the passion and purpose in your suffering, right? So just think about that, so in order for us to be where we are today, to be so passionate about something, to be able to turn an illness into something positive because we've been through it and we figured out how to make it work for us using the plant and other tools. This is what we want to do, is we want to give people hope, that you can do it too. Because I literally, just like Nikki, that suicidal ideation, that not wanting to live, knowing you have so much to live for, but you don't feel it. And so cannabis changed that and shifted that. And so we want you all to know that there is another way. And if I can do it, if Nikki can do it, and so can you.
Yes, we all can. It's amazing. So guys, again, tune in every Wednesday, 4:20 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for us here in the Weeds. We love having you guys. And we got some fun stuff coming out soon, hopefully. So next week, me and Sherry start shooting a few new segments. We have a grower segment coming up where we get to unbox one of the big growers' grow kits. We're going to set it up. We're going to throw a do-si-do bean in there, and we're going to start a grow series, guys. So we're going to start a weekly grow series here. So we can help you from seed to finish, right? Harvest season's coming up. I know everybody's getting ready for the outdoor season, but just because it's sunny and bright out you don't have to go outdoors. So if you're a patient, you have limited space, we have a couple great options. This series will hopefully help explain that to you. Sherry will be here with us. We'll have a grower. So we'll explain to you all the different reasons, the whys, the what you can do, and the different steps and phases in the growing process, which are fun and unique. So we can't wait to get that going. We'll have a little review on the 10 as well, because we're starting a review series finally. So we're going to get a review series launch as well. With me and Sherry, we're going to do the different view reviews, what we're going to call it. So unique perspective on all products cannabis. So we have Terpinators, we have the Addicted Animal series books, we have some hash and products coming. We have a lot of unique things getting tested, guys. So if you guys want to get involved in that review process in your company and you want to get that taken care of, or someone to take two different looks, we're going to take the recreational look and the medicinal look at every product. So we know we talk about a lot in the show, the differences and how we really need to pull that apart and make sure we educate the medicinal people on the proper things and the recreational on the proper things. And just because it's a great recreational product doesn't mean it's a great medicinal product. And just because it's a great medicinal product probably doesn't mean it might not be a great recreational product. So we're going to come at it those two different views as DJ Joe and their Sherry. So we're excited for that as well. And whatever else may happen between now and then, we'll let you know. But you guys want to find out more about that, just find us, follow us, like us, love us on our social media pages, and then go vote. Right? In the Weeds, the Green Nurse, and myself are all have been nominated for awards, and we're very excited for best podcast and for myself as Activist of the Year. So hopefully you guys get your support. You guys go on vote, and that's pretty much all we got for quick news, right? And I want to thank all you guys for coming, Justin. The Bug Grower, thank you.
Always a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh man, I love having you on board now. And if you guys want to get anything off of the website, the Bug Grower, you guys are interested in the kit, you want to do your grow series with us, and you want to set it up, and you can go right along with us. You can go right to the Bug Grower. You can find everything from soils to complete kits, all at a very well discounted rate. You can have 10% off if you use the Prohibition 10 code. So remember that, Prohibition 10. Timothy Fair, Vermont Cannabis Solutions. Love you, brother. Tim on the Vermont Cannabis Solutions page just posted up something for all you Vermonters about the Kaya, right? So if you guys want to check it out, go there. I know Sherry has a show this evening as well, correct?
Yes, got a show tonight at 8 p.m. with the first nurse that won an award for the American Safe Access. So really cool, cannabis nurse. Colleen Graham. So she's going to come on and share her story. So we're illuminating nurses and health professionals in the industry that are stepping outside the box and taking on cannabis as medicine and that are doing something amazing in their community. So she's got a really great story. So we're tonight at 8 p.m.
All right, guys. I think that's it. One more thing. Family photo. Quick family photo.
Let's do a family photo. Oh my God, I love it.
We'll do a live one. Everybody see.
Live family photo.
Everybody will see how much you need to. Now we got Justin with us, right?
Are you ready? 1, 2, 3.
All right, guys, that's it. We'll see you next week.
Have a good week, everybody.
Take care.
Bye, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.